we go think about stories, so there's stories that we tell in our schools that are like national narratives about schools. And we talk a bit about this, right? So everyone has heard these kids don't want to learn, right?
Right.
Everyone has learned their parents don't, has heard the story that their parents don't care, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has heard the story or someone say, it's all about test scores, right?
Right.
So
The
what we
excuses of why it hasn't worked, right?
yeah, we tell these stories all the time. These are deficit-oriented stories, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the way those stories, they shape reality and our understanding, right, in ways that become common, right, and become embedded in our culture. And so we argue in equity focused leadership that it's important to begin to notice the stories that we tell that are deficit oriented stories and the impact that they have on our ability to create transformative change, right? Because if these are the stories we're telling, then the solutions we come up with are going to be built on the backs of these deficit oriented stories, right? So it's not the story of possibilities like Mrs. Key told me in second grade when she was like, I have all, like, my students have come to this. And this was in a rural community in Central Virginia, and it was a poor community, right? But
Mm-hmm.
there were all kinds of possibilities from what she said, right? She wasn't telling stories of deficit. She didn't tell us we were poor. She didn't tell us we didn't have. She told us that her students, those kids who had done well in her class, had gone on to college, that they were doctors, that they were lawyers, and that actually we could meet them, right? Right? If we, went to church on Sunday, right? Like she was telling us
Right.
possibilities. And so, what we want people to begin to do really is to think about how the stories you're telling are shaping your solutions and the ways in
Mm-hmm.
which you build relationships with people, right? How are they, how do you understand then what's happening in your school building because of this deficit oriented story that you're telling, right?
Hmm.
And so, how then might you consider whether and how you tell a story that is discouraging and disempowering to a teacher, right? So, if you tell a teacher, oh, well, the parents don't care, keep working hard, but these parents don't care. I
Right.
mean, why am I as a teacher going to keep persevering,
Why
right?
should I care if they
Why should
care?
I
Right.
care if the parents don't
Yeah.
care? And in actuality, that's just not a true story,
Right. Right.
right? Right?
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so we hear this all the time. We hear these deficit views and stories all the time by very well-meaning people, right? And they say that it's the problems of the neighborhood, the families, it's the child, the kid's not motivated, there's not enough grit. It's all of these things, right? They don't have a
Mm-hmm.
growth mindset, right?
Yeah.
And so, but the reality is that we are living in a system that is also perpetuating this,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's not just all on any individual, right? And so, how when you say to me like, how do we do this with leaders? I would say first to get them to tell different stories,
Hmm.
right? First and foremost, check your stories. What are you telling? What are you saying to yourself each morning about the possibility? And you asked me early on, Liz, you asked me, why we see people leaving the classroom, we see folks
Mm-hmm.
leaving buildings and all this. And I absolutely believe that it is because people are hopeless. They don't see the possibilities of,
Mm.
what's there. And they feel like they are working harder and harder, and none of these and the stories that they're hearing are becoming more and more deficit focused, especially after COVID, right? There's a larger
Yeah.
gap there. All of these things,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
are worse if you you know um,
Right.
look at certain data points. And so if that's the case, how do we disrupt and reframe deficit oriented stories in ourselves and in others so that, right, we can actually think outside the box about what we can do.